Hello, my lovely dreamers. I'm really happy to see you again as always. Welcome or welcome back to this channel called Old School ASMR Sounds. My name is Christina and I make ASMR videos. I especially love creating true crime videos, true crime ASMR videos, and I also love creating different role plays. Hello to you and you and you and you and of course you. Thank you very much for clicking, and please at the end of this video, if you intend to watch it, of course, please don't forget to drop a like or consider subscribing. Thank you very much. This way you could help my channel grow. It's Sunday evening and I'm here with you with another true crime story, and this time I will take you back in time again, but it's not too far away back in time, but still we're going back in 1986. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. I will need my glasses because I really need to read some ears, some names correctly. So let's get started. This story is about a lady who was trained to help and protect people, but this lady used her training skills to eliminate her rival in love, and this lady almost got away with murder. The story that I'm going to tell is about someone who had lived a normal life for 23 years. This story had been considered a cold case for 23 years until DNA helped investigators solve the case. So let's go back in time. It is February 24th, 1986. And John Rutten is preparing to go to work. It is was early in the morning, and his beautiful wife, Sherri Rasmussen, who was born on February 7th, 1957. His beautiful wife is thinking to call work and tell them that she can come because she is not feeling very well. In fact, Sherri is scheduled to give a motivational speech at work today, a managerial tactic, but she doesn't feel like, so she wants to avoid it, and she lets her husband know that she might call in sick using a back injury that she had while doing aerobics. And her husband leaves the house to go to work, and later that day he calls his wife numerous times, but she doesn't answer. And Rattan assumes that she left for work in the long run. That day at around 9:45 in the morning, a neighbor noticed that the Rattan's garage door was open, but no car was visible inside the garage. Approximately 15 minutes later, Rattan calls home, the first of several unanswered calls, as I have told you. Sherri's sister also called without getting any answer. At about 12 o'clock, two men gave a neighbor a purse that they had found, and this purse later turned on to be Sherri's purse. John wasn't too worried about the fact that his wife didn't answer the phone because she had a very busy life. And when John returned home in the evening, he found the garage door open and also found broken glass in the driveway. He also discovered that the car he had bought for Sherri as an engagement gift, she wanted a car instead of a ring, and she used to call that car her engagement car. It was a BMW. And John discovered that the car was missing also. He found this thing quite strange, leaving the house without letting him know like this. The house answering machine had not been activated, despite of them usually activating it Sherri on the living room floor in front of the fireplace. She had been shot 3 times. There were signs of a struggle. There was a broken vase, and there was also a blanket with a burnt hole in it, which had been probably used to muffle the sound. And totally distraught, John calls the police. On the February 24th, 1986, John Rutten found the lifeless body of his beautiful wife Sherri Rasmussen in the apartment they shared in California, United States. She had been beaten and shot 3 times. There were signs of a struggle, and the Los Angeles Police Department considered the case a botched burglary and were unable at first identify the suspect. Analyzing the scene, the detectives investigating the case quickly concluded that Sherri had been surprised by a burglar. So they thought that someone had been in the process of gathering the electronic equipment when Sherri just entered the room and surprised the person or the persons. As a result, Sherri's jewelry box had been left behind, and the only thing they stole was the car in order to run away to get away. Sherri's abandoned car was recovered a week later. There was no trace of evidence inside the car. The only item that appeared to have been taken from the home was the couple's marriage certificate, the marriage license, which was extremely strange. The lead detective did not consider other possibilities. He ruled out the husband also as a suspect. John quit his job and moved away from LA shortly after the murder. And the police remain focused on the possibility of the burglary, because a lot of burglaries had been reported in the same area, and suspects, two men, and the investigators found also a bite mark on Sherri, and they considered this bite mark quite unusual, as bites during struggle are much more inflicted by women, while the majority of burglars are men. But still they didn't give up their theory about two burglars entering the house. Investigators took a swoop from Sherri's bite mark. So Sherri had a bite mark on her arm, and the police took a swoop from it, and this swoop will play the major role in solving this murder, but many years later. John and Sherri had been married only for 3 months when this tragedy happened. John met Sherri, who was on a fast career track in critical care nursing. He met her at a party and totally fell in love with her. Sherri was extremely beautiful. She was also extremely smart. She entered college at 16, and by her late 20s, she was already the director of nursing at Glendale Adventist Medical Center, giving presentations and teaching classes for fellow nurses. She was a kind-hearted person, always smiling and always ready to risk her life in order to help the others. She was kind, sweet, smart, ambitious, practical. John was a mechanical engineer, and being asked about possible axes that might have been considered suspects, he almost omitted to mention a previous girlfriend between quotation marks named Stephanie Lazarus. Stephanie had been his best friend, and while he was an undergraduate at the University of California from 1978 to 1982, he occasionally dated Stephanie Lazarus, a fellow student. They were both athletes, and John always considered Stephanie a good friend, and he also told, joking, some of his friends that Stephanie had a body to die for, but her face was not quite as pretty. I know, quite rude. But the thing is that John didn't really see a girlfriend in Stephanie, just a friend, but they were good friends, they were always together. Stephanie would do things that she considered to be jokes, but still she would steal his clothes while he was showering. He would take photographs of him while sleeping. And although John had never considered the relationship anything more than fooling around, still they had been friends with benefits, if you know what I mean. But Stephanie admitted to some of her friends that she was in love with John and saw in him more than a friend, more than a good friend, a friend with benefits, of course. Stephanie applied to the City Police Academy and became a uniformed officer with the LA Police Department, LAPD, in 1983. So she was extremely ambitious also. And they had some sort of strange relationship, some kind of friendship. They met from time to time, and John didn't consider her his girlfriend, but still Stephanie wanted more to say so, and I'm sure that she was dreaming about even a marriage or a more serious relationship. Stephanie even threw a party for John's 25th birthday, and John, at that point, John had started dating Sherri, and he didn't mention Stephanie anything about this. He had also been dating other women and had never mentioned anything to Stephanie. And he really developed a serious relationship with Sherri, and they wanted to get married. And Stephanie learned, of course, in the end, he learned that he wanted to marry Sherri, and of course she didn't like it, and she confessed her friends, saying that she would never understand his decision. She would never understand why John is getting married. And she called John, and then she visited John at in order to have some kind of closure. Very, very strange. And John also acted extremely strange. So he was in love with Sherri. He was very serious about the relationship, but still he still met his friend with benefits, to say so. That is very strange. This John seemed to be so passive and I don't know, unable to make a decision to end the relationship for good. Being still in love with John, Stephanie started stalking somehow Sherri. She visited Sherri at work, dressed in workout clothes, and told Sherri that although they were engaged, John still loves her and still John still loved her and visited her from time to time. So Sherri found out about Stephanie, but John confessed and told her everything, and he also told Sherri that he had finished the relationship for good, and they finally got married. But during the engagement, Stephanie brought even her skis to their apartment, asking John to wax them. And despite Stephanie objecting, he did so. So I don't know, there is also something strange about this John. And Stephanie returned to take the skis, the wax skis, wearing a uniform and armed. Stephanie was annoyed by these visits and asked John to tell her to stop coming by. And John said that there was nothing left and that she should ignore Stephanie. But still, as I have told you, Stephanie visited Sherri at her office, telling her that the things were not over between her and John, and that if she could not have John, no one else would. And if their marriage wouldn't last, if their marriage hadn't lasted, she would have been there to pick up the pieces. And still John didn't do anything about it. Shortly before the tragedy, Sherri confessed to her father everything and told him that she was afraid of Stephanie because crazy and was stalking her on the street. She even thought that saw a woman disguised as a man following her. So we have two newlyweds living in a beautiful apartment, and we also have a crazy ex-girlfriend who used to stalk Sherri, and still the police suspected only the burglars, and they were convinced that Sherri had been the victim of a burglary, that it would have been a struggle, and that the burglars escaped, stealing only Sherri's car from the garage. In the meantime, Stephanie continued working with the LAPD. She even went on to start her own private investigation firm. She earned medals. She was considered an extremely good cop, very clean. She was that kind of woman who baked cookies and made homemade soap and gifted these little things to the neighbors in the street. She married a fellow officer and adopted a daughter, and she became an instructor at the police academy. And John eventually remarried also, but he didn't put pressure on the police. But his former father-in-law had. So Sherri's parents and her sister could never accept that their daughter and sister case was considered a cold case. Could never accept the idea that the policemen were following only the burglary lead. Sherri's father told the police investigators about John's ex-girlfriend, about her behavior, about the stalkings, the phone calls, about everything, but the policeman made fun of him somehow and told him that he used to watch too many true crime shows and didn't even consider this lead. But in the late 1990s, DNA testing had become more prominent, and the LAPD formed a new unit that looked through the evidence collected from the department's cold case files to determine if they had the potential for new leads using DNA testing. However, able to analyze the swab taken from that bite. And some of the evidence from Sherri's case was missing, having been collected in 1993 by another detective. The investigators did not find any matches in the combined DNA index system database, but did find that the saliva in it had come from a female. So this made them think very seriously that the initial detective's burglary theory was wrong. Upon discovering that the biter was female, the investigator reviewed it and came across a report of a female who had allegedly stalked the victim at the job and the residence before the murder. The investigator asked the detective supervising her if this woman had been investigated at the time, and found out that he wasn't. Digging deeper, he could find that the former girlfriend of the victim's husband was in fact the current detective. And the other investigators insisted that the case was just a burglary, as the department had long concluded. And they decided not to pursue the case, and the evidence went back into the file. So they took that swab, analyzed it, discovered that it came from a female. They found a report about a woman stalking the victim before she died. They found out that that woman was a fellow detective, and they decided to drop everything and put the evidence back. Oh my god. Oh, by 2009, crime declining in LA offered time to the detective to offer the time necessary to look into cold cases. So the detectives and other ones, of course, reviewed Sherri's file and found it interesting enough. So they decided to give it a try and try to solve it. Because the DNA test pointed to a female suspect, they finally decided, and for good, that the burglary lead was totally invalid. And this way it should have been from the start. So, by that time, Stephanie had been promoted to a higher level of detective and was working at theft cases as part of the commercial crimes division. She had been active in the LA Women Police Officer Association and organized childcare for families of officers. And the detectives realized that they really needed to proceed carefully. And they ranked Stephanie. They had some other suspects, all females, and ranked Stephanie as the least probable of the 5 suspects. But the 2 detectives soon eliminated all 5 suspects, and there was only Stephanie left. So the detectives began looking into other aspects of Stephanie's life during 1980s. To find out that Stephanie bought a second gun, that she owned a Smith & Wesson Model 49, and that she reported it stolen to Santa Monica police 13 days after the murder. The detectives theorized from their own experience about how an officer would commit such a thing, and that it would have been better to do it on a day off. And looking into the records, they could also find out that Stephanie had indeed been off the day Sherri was killed. Officer with no better than to use their duty gun, since it would have to be disposed of after the crime. So it makes sense that she bought a backup gun. Last, a working patrol officer would know how to do just enough to make the crime look like an interrupted burglary. All that they needed was a DNA sample, and they kept Stephanie under investigation without, of course, letting her know. And while she was off duty running errands, she threw a cup from which she had been drinking, and the detectives took that cup in order to analyze the DNA. Of course, a sample was taken from it which matched the DNA from the bite mark on Sherri's arm. And this way they began planning her arrest. Stephanie initially thought that they needed help in solving a case, and they used a location in which Stephanie would have to surrender her gun in order to enter, limiting the possibility that she might resist violently. After Stephanie had checked in her gun and entered the room, they explained that this was really about some things they need to discuss about the Rasmussen case. And if you want to watch, there are a series of videos on YouTube, online, about the interrogation of Stephanie. She acts as if she cannot remember. She cannot remember Sherri's name. She cannot remember any dates precisely. Everything seems to be so vague. And she really acts extremely strange. But after the interrogation, in spite of declining and saying that she had nothing to do with the murder, she was shortly arrested and charged with murder. Once she had been arrested, the police officer teams began searching her home and car. They found a journal from the 90s in which she mentioned her love for John, and in which also mentioned that she was extremely sad because he married Sherri. Her computer showed that she had searched the internet for John's name on several occasions over the years. Of course, the LPD officers were stunned at the idea that Stephanie might have murdered someone. And after her arrest, Stephanie was allowed to retire early from the LAPD. Trial was a media circus, of course, because to everyone, including the newspaper and the media, this seemed to be some kind of soap opera. And Stephanie, 52 years old, was convicted of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this case. What made Stephanie act this way? I think she felt used. I think that indeed John used her. And when he fell in love, frustration and jealousy. But still she couldn't have John after this. What I forgot to mention is they met again. They continued somehow their friends with benefits relationship after Sherri's death, but still they didn't get married. He couldn't have John for herself. He didn't get anything out of this except maybe for revenge, or maybe she wanted to make John suffer the way she was suffering. I don't know. Was it revenge? Was it frustration? Was it obsession? Was it jealousy? I think that she had continued to love John. I think that she loved John all her life. And yeah, I told you that the police found in her computer evidence that she searched for him, for his name. I think that she could never forget him. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you very much for watching or listening.